Welcome and thank you for joining us tonight. For those of you who are new to our program, Wellness Wednesday is Westside is a ministry of the Westside Presbyterian Church with the intention to help all of those who are on a journey towards wellness. We are a collaborative learning community seeking to integrate body, mind, emotion, and spirit. And we're committed to presenting practices, people, ideas that benefit the whole person for the whole of life. And if you notice, we will be recording this, so it's something that you'll be able to access on our YouTube channel later. And also we will be muting if you haven't muted. There will be time at the end of this program to ask questions, but we would like you to hold those questions till then. If you would like, feel free to put them in our chat feature. You can put them in anonymously, or you and send them just to, Liz or I, or you can just put them in under your name, and we will ask those questions for you when the time comes. So that will be after at the end. And you can also unmute yourself towards the end to ask those questions when we open up to the community. So tonight we welcome back by popular demand our own Jen Wilshaw. Just makes me smile to be able to say her name and see her on the screen and share her with all of you. Jen Wilshaw is the owner of Higher Fitness and Wellness, which combines the best of her 25 years experience as a health and fitness professional and seeker of wellness and faith. So tonight, Jen is starting us on a wonderful program called Aligned, Well, and New in 2022. And it's a series that is going to help us identify some of the more common movement habits that can contribute to all kinds of issues, chronic ailments, diseases maybe you never even thought of, like respiratory issues, brain fog, which many people are experiencing through COVID, diabetes, poor balance, and on. And she's going to teach us some simple movement habits that'll improve circulation, muscle and bone strength, and overall health. And this series will continue in February on the 23rd and also March on the 23rd. And we will be sending out more emails as that time comes. But for now, I'm going to stop speaking and let Jen take over. So welcome, Jen. We are thrilled to have you here.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Liz. It's an honor to be here. Oh my gosh, look at everyone. I miss you. Mm-hmm. Well, welcome to Aligned, Well, and New in 2022. I'm beyond grateful to share this time with all of you as we explore what has often been overlooked by many health and medical experts. And that is the way we use our bodies often creates pain, injury, disease, and premature aging. My education in anatomy, physiology, and kinesiology, which is just the study of human movement, coupled with over 25 years of working with individuals of all ages with very diverse fitness abilities, has been incredibly rewarding. However, it has also elicited frustration, not in my students or clients, but in the poor outcomes I have seen from a billion-dollar industry that promises improved fitness and wellness. Concerning questions began to arise within me. Why do couch potatoes, athletes, and professional dancers suffer from the same chronic ailments, such as osteoarthritis, foot, knee, hip, and back pain? Why do the movement patterns and postures of 25-year-olds look very similar to those of 75-year-olds? Why are knee and hip replacements on the rise, especially in the United States? Why are osteoporosis, colon cancer, hypertension, and diabetes now plaguing the under 50 population? And finally, why is dementia prevalent as never before? Sadly, this is an accurate reflection of our current model of health, and I'm not satisfied with it. It is my experience that others are not satisfied either. People want help. They crave answers, honesty, and a detailed understanding of what may be derailing them from achieving their wellness goals, which for many, it's just to get out of pain. I'm going to share that knowledge with you in our 3-part series, Aligned, Well, and New, in 2022, and encourage you to start gently repairing your human machine so that you can feel better. Now, those of you who know me are aware that I'm passionately committed to creating communities, both virtually and in person, where better health is realized through better mechanics. Better health is realized through better mechanics. This simply means that we learn and practice movements that the body requires in order to live disease and injury-free as long as possible. I do not particularly care how many push-ups, squats, or lunges you can perform, because none of those accomplishments are getting people well and out of pain. As a matter of fact, traditional fitness protocols are inappropriate for chronic pain sufferers. And that will become more clear as we share the next 3 months together. In the meantime, I encourage your taking some notes and jotting down questions of concern. If you are not up to embracing any of the suggestions or tips, simply watch, listen, and apply the information when you are ready. This is your journey, and I'm honored to be your companion for a little while. So let's break out the owner's manual for operating our machines. You have it in front of you? You didn't get one? Neither did any of us, because it hasn't been written yet. Tonight, we're going to begin the first few chapters. In fact, let me share with you what you can expect to learn. First thing is Human Physics 101. There will be no quiz. We're just going to discuss how the way we use our bodies often creates degeneration, disease, and pain. Human Physics 101. The next topic that we will learn and discuss is who taught us to move in the first place? And is it harmful or helpful? So Human Physics 101, who taught us to move in the first place, and is it helpful or harmful? And then the third area that we'll cover is how to start moving better. How to start moving better. Okay, so here comes the owner's manual. Okay, under human physics, the first thing that I want to make really clear is that in order to be aligned, well with optimal health, we must move our bodies regularly throughout the day, every day. We must move our bodies regularly throughout the day, every single day. There is no day off, friends, from moving. There's no day off from moving. So this means that we want to stop outsourcing our body's work to our furniture, sitting no longer than 30 to 60 minutes at a time. Okay? In addition, we must stop relying on intense bouts of exercise to get us well, when what we need is all-day movement. So we want to stop relying just on these intense pockets of exercise when what we need is all-day movement. Some of you may recall the Wellness Wednesday that we had together about a year ago, and it discussed the detriments of sitting. We learned in that time together that exercise and movement are not synonymous. Exercise refers to a purposeful type of movement for a specified duration of time. Exercise is a purposeful type of movement for a specified duration of time. For example, 60 minutes of physical therapy, that's exercise. A 30-minute walk, 45 minutes of yoga, 20 minutes of strength training. Those are examples of exercise. Movement, on the other hand, refers to all of our non-exercise activities. including how we stand, how we walk, how we garden, how we climb stairs, how we push a grocery cart, and how we sit when we must sit. It is frequent, proper movement that equates to longevity and health far more than exercise alone does. Did you ever think you'd hear me say that? All right, so it is frequent, proper movement that equates to longevity and health far more than exercise alone does. Now, that does not mean we don't exercise, but it does mean that we move in addition to exercise. It's not enough to go to the gym 6 days a week for an hour, which is pretty impressive, and then sit the remainder of those days at computers, in cars, on buses, at meals. That's what's hurting us. That's what's hurting us. We tend to look at our exercise as movement, and now you know they're not the same. And once we're done walking for 20 minutes, we check it off and put it in a box and say, done, there, I did what I had to do. And we tend to sit too long, and we tend to sit improperly. Okay, so that's the first element in understanding Human Physics 101. The body must move regularly. Exercise alone won't cut it. We need exercise in addition to regular, frequent movement. The second thing to understand about Human Physics 101 is that in a healthy body, there are 3 substances flowing constantly and seamlessly without hindrance. 3 substances that are flowing constantly and seamlessly without any hindrance. The first is electricity. Electricity. The second is blood. And the third is lymph, L-Y-M-P-H, lymph. So electricity, blood, and lymph. Electricity refers to the communication between the brain and the rest of the body, and it flows through the nervous system via the spinal cord and the nerves. Blood carries oxygen, and it is oxygenated blood that our cells literally eat to remain nourished. Without it, there's cellular death. Okay, now blood is part of the cardiovascular system, and that includes, as I'm sure you know, the heart, the arteries, and the smallest vessels known as capillaries. Okay, so electricity refers to the communication between the brain and the rest of the body, flows through the nervous system. Blood carries oxygen, and it is oxygenated blood that our cells need to survive. And that's part of, and that includes the heart, the arteries, and the capillaries. And finally, lymph is part of the immune system. The lymphatic system is sometimes referred to as the gutter system of the body. And that's because it's designed to remove waste, cellular waste, tissue waste. Okay, so electricity, blood, and lymph. Now, what do the nervous system or electricity and the cardiovascular system or blood and the immune system or lymph all have in common? They require, it is not suggested, they require regular, daily, not 3 days per week, regular, daily, all over muscle usage in order to remain disease-free. So if you're exercising only on a stationary bike, if that's the only way you exercise, or if the only way you're moving throughout the day is to get up from the couch, to go to the kitchen, to come back to the couch, to go to the bathroom, then you are not moving all your muscles. And you may be experiencing challenges with pain, injury, disease, or even accelerated aging. I think we can relate to this. How many of us have said, and I have said it myself, COVID feels as if it has aged me, right? What has gone on during COVID? I call it sedentary inertia. Nothing, nothingness, sitting, sleeping, crying, eating, drinking, sitting. And that, I think, is a great example of how that nothingness creates issues, accelerated aging, aches, pains, and on and on. Now, please consider something when I mention all over muscle usage, right? I said that that electricity, that blood and lymph require all over muscle usage. When we think of muscles, we usually associate them with the big muscles used during exercises like walking, swimming, running, dancing. But there are muscles that have far more demanding jobs and are experiencing major dysfunction. For example, the muscles that support the arches of the feet, the muscles between the ribs called your intercostals that help you breathe, the muscles of the pelvic floor that hold our internal organs in place, preventing incontinence and organ prolapse. We must use those muscles before strong electrical flow, healthy circulation, and lymph can occur. And we tend to think in opposite terms, don't we? Muscles precede everything. In order to have an area, a muscle, get proper electrical flow, circulation, and lymph, we must use it. We must use it. To better understand this, what if I asked you how blood moves through the body? What would you say? I can probably read lips on this one. How would you say blood moves through the body? By what? No lips are moving.
People could type it in the chat. Type in the chat.
Yeah, type it in the chat.
Pumped. It's pumped.
It's
from
pumped.
the heart.
It's pumped from the heart. Yes, that's true. Now, while the heart obviously plays a huge role in circulation, it's really only half the story. Arteries, yes, half the story. Friends, when we use muscles, we contract muscles, any muscle, the heart, the bicep. When we use a muscle, we contract that muscle. That means that the smaller blood vessels, the capillaries that live inside that muscle, dilate. They dilate and they open up, drawing massive blood into the area. That blood flow then feeds and regenerates the cells of that muscle, of that specific muscle that has contracted. It also feeds the bones in that area and all of the connective tissue that lives there. Okay, so ample blood flow also removes accumulated waste through lymph. Lymph that, if not removed, leads to swelling and inflammation in the area. And inflammation is the enemy because it makes the body very sensitive to touch and to movement. It makes moving painful and exercising impossible. In fact, even pushing on the skin can hurt, and it's all because we aren't using the muscles in that area. So are you thinking what I'm thinking? Functional muscles, muscles that are contracting, muscles that are being used, muscles that are at a proper length, equate to strong, dense bones, reduced inflammation, more pain-free joints, and disease-free tissue. It also means that the heart is not being taxed to beat harder and faster than it should to compensate for any muscles not doing their due diligence to circulate blood. How we doing? So let's recap that. That's a lot on human physics. We now know that using a muscle means that all of the nerves are communicating well with the brain. Muscles with good electrical flow hold more blood, and that reduces the work that the heart has to do. Regularly used muscles allow blood and lymph to flow more effortlessly, thus permitting nourishment and efficient waste removal from the area. Nutritious, cleaned up muscles halt premature aging, disease processes, pain, and injury. In fact, many of the diseases that we associate with aging, such as diabetes and memory loss, are a result of lack of muscle use. They have nothing to do with the number of birthdays we've celebrated. With diabetes, for example, muscle cells no longer remember how to use insulin. They don't remember it. So insulin comes knocking on the door and the muscle says, we don't know you. We don't recognize you anymore. And the result is chaotic blood sugar readings. Dietary modification alone cannot fix this. Some of you may have found that. You've gone on a low carb or low sugar diet to no avail. Same is true with hypertension. You go on a low salt diet, but it hasn't quite done the job. And that is because a diet cannot teach a muscle how to work properly. Rather, the solution is to get electricity, blood, and lymph flowing through the muscles by using them. Then we can begin to heal. Let's look at another prevalent issue, and that would be brain fog, forgetfulness, even dementia and Alzheimer's. A lack of oxygenated blood flow and poor waste removal are at the heart of these conditions. Not only do our bodies lack adequate circulation from sitting all day, but when we do sit and even stand and walk, our alignment is so off. It's so off with slouching shoulders and poking chins and forward heads that the tissues and organs in this cavity, in this area, especially the brain, are deprived of everything they need to survive and thrive: electricity, circulation, and lymph. Let's take a look at what this may feel like in our own bodies. So can we all palpate? Do any of you, are you aware that you have any knots or balls in your neck, balls of tension? You can kind of palpate around. I'm sure you'll find something in there. We all tend to have it. You'll find little balls, little knots. It might be an area where you feel restriction, a little bit of maybe something moving back and forth. When you turn your head or your neck, you feel tight. It feels restricted. You might have it in your low back. You might have it between your shoulder blades. Okay, remember that. Now, will everybody please sit as straight as possible, shoulders over hips, eyes ahead, ears over shoulders, and slowly roll your shoulders up, back, and down. Is anybody hearing or feeling crunching, crackling like Rice Krispies? Yes or no? Yeah. Let's try another movement assessment. It's called neck retraction. All the safe on your feeders know this. We're going to make a double chin. It won't leave you with a double chin, I promise. Sitting tall, eyes, nose, and chin straight ahead. Poke your chins way out, which is where we tend to spend a lot of time, especially with our tech. Now drive your chin straight back, mouth closed, making a double chin. It's not attractive. Go on. Poke, tuck. When you tuck, I'd like you to listen for any crackling, crunching Rice Krispies. Poke, tuck. Are you aware of a little bit of chaos in there, a little feedback? Crackling, yeah. Even if you move your head and neck to one side, you might feel it if you squeeze your shoulder blades. Bottom line is there. All of that, the knots, the balls, the crunch, the crackle, the pop, all of that is evidence of areas being starved of adequate circulation and proper waste removal due to poor muscle usage. It's not getting there, friends. The blood's not getting there. And by the way, I'm not so perfect. When I retract, I crackle and crunch. It's these habits. We're not using all of the muscles in these areas as they should be used, and we're locking ourselves into patterns where we stay stuck like this for too long. Deprivation, major deprivation of circulation. And I don't know about you, I've never been told this, but I'm seeing a big correlation here. Never in history have we relied on tech as much as we do. Never in history are we seeing as much Alzheimer's, dementia, brain fog, memory issues, anxiety, stress. I believe there's a connection there. I really do. We're not oxygenating and circulating adequately to these tissues, and there's a price we're paying. All right, that's Human Physics 101, the basics. All right. Again, if you have any questions or concerns, please jot them down and we can go over that. Next, we're going to go over who taught us to move in the first place, and is it harmful or helpful? Everyone has a very particular way of moving. In fact, it's so specific that you can usually identify somebody by the way he or she walks in the parking lot, stands, or sits. It's recognizable. Our postures and our gait patterns, that is the way we walk, that's a gait pattern, are learned by watching others as we grew up, especially our family members. But that does not make them genetic. Stay with me. We're going to be friends. It's going to be all right. Just hang on. All right. It does not make them genetic. Let me say that again. Our movement patterns are learned, not inherited. And this is why degenerative disease patterns tend to run in certain families. It's not a DNA thing. For example, maybe your grandmother and your mother had bunions. And when you look at your feet, you're seeing bunions too. So you naturally assume it's part of your DNA. You know, it's in the genes. I inherited that. That's part of my gene pool. But it's not. It's not. Even babies who are born with maybe one foot turned in or out, or sometimes both pigeon-toed. My husband had one turned in. Those are learned patterns by the way the baby moved and positioned in the womb. Friends, joints do not wear out from age. The best physical therapists will tell you that. I'm not a physical therapist. The best biomechanical scientists will tell you that. I'm not a biomechanical scientist, but I've committed myself to learning this stuff because I believe it to be true, and I've seen it. I've seen it in my own body and in others. We do not inherit duck feet, pigeon feet, osteoarthritis, bunions, bad knees, bad hips, bad backs, dowager's humps, or type 2 diabetes. We create these conditions based on how we learned to move, and it's not your fault. It's not your fault because none of us learned how to move properly. In addition to mimicking the movement habits of family, we learn our biomechanical patterns from other sources too. Playing a favorite sport. For example, wrestlers or boxers, they'll assume these rounded postures to engage in their sport, to block, to guard, to defend. They're slouched. And a lot of times you'll see those same athletes out on the street or hanging out with family, and they have rounded shoulders. They tend to walk improperly. They've learned that. They've learned that. Anyone with a dance background. I was a dancer for 12 to 14 years. I loved it. It's all I ever wanted to do was become a dancer. I was on point. I did jazz. I did tap. I loved it. And I will tell you that some very unhealthy movement patterns are learned. with lasting ramifications by dancers. So you may see a dancer. What I tended to do, we tuck the pelvis because we're often whacked with a stick. We don't want the bottom to stick out. You know, that's not what a ballerina does. We're taught to tuck under, squeeze. A lot of the positions in ballet, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, require toes turning out, toes turning out, toes turning out. And so these patterns that I learned spilled over. I used to walk with both feet turned out. My pelvic tucking has gone on for years to the point that it has hurt me. It has hurt me. It's affected my pelvic floor, and I've had a lot of issues with that. A lot of times ballerinas, because they're always relevéing on their toes, whether they're in a natural ballet slipper or on point, because they're up on their toes, they tend to walk on their toes. So they lose the proper gait patterning of heel, ball, toe, heel, ball, toe. They just kind of stay on their toes. And all of these learned habits, these learned patterns can affect our alignment. We end up with knee issues, huge issues with the feet, especially bunions, plantar fasciitis, hammer toes, neuropathy. Think about neuropathy is not just something that happens at a certain age or just a byproduct of diabetes. I'm having issues with neuropathy, and you know what I do. I do what I do. I couldn't move more. It's the result of venous insufficiency, and just the mere fact that we're always in shoes creates a problem. Shoes cast us, draw our toes together, and what happens when all of this is restricted? Limited blood flow, limited circulation, minimal electricity, inefficient waste removal. And that's what creates these issues. What about anyone with a military background, men or women who have served in the military? They will often learn to stand with knees locked, chins back at attention. So if you look at my neck, chin back, you will see that my neck looks very straight, almost like a pin. There's no longer a natural cervical curve there. That's actually called military neck. There's a name for it, military neck. And what that does is much like this from our tech, these extreme neck positions impede blood flow to the brain, impede circulation, and we end up with some of the same issues: brain fog, forgetfulness. Locked knees damage the cartilage of the knees. How about learned driving habits? When we were 17, we all learned to drive. And what were we taught? Hands at 10 and 2. Watch my posture when I'm at 10 and 2. It can't not happen. This is called internal rotation of the shoulder. If I'm internally rotating the shoulder, I'm going to slouch. Furthermore, when we slouch, we tend to poke the chin or have a forward head posture. I often will tell my students, practice driving at 4 and 8, but practice, just don't go and do it. I don't want you to have a problem. Watch what happens when I go from 10 and 2 to 4 and 8. I didn't force anything. It's the mechanics that changed. 10 and 2, 4 and 8. 4 and 8 externally rotated my shoulders. As I externally rotate my shoulders and bring my posture back into alignment, my head will follow. Does that make sense? Another thing that we do when we're driving is we tend to have the foot that's on the gas pedal turned out. The foot is externally rotated, but the knee is often left facing ahead. So when the foot is turned out and the knee is straight, it creates torque in the knee, and we can start having some knee issues. So we want to try to drive with the foot straight on the pedal, everything in alignment. And finally, another way that we've learned to move, 2 more ways. Poor self-esteem and even our clothing can affect how we move, how we've learned to move. So for example, if you were the tallest in the class at a very young age, you were probably pretty self-conscious about that and perceived it as a flaw. So what did you do? Bent your knees while you were walking and standing and slouched. We already know slouching has a gazillion problems associated with it, but bending your knees when you're walking or standing leads to many issues, including osteoporosis, because your spine is not feeling your weight. When you bend your knees and soften them, your spine can no longer feel the sufficiency of your body weight, and that makes the bones less dense. Or maybe you were too short and you hated that. You were the shortest in the class, so what would you do there? You probably would walk on your toes a little bit to try to gain some height and minimize that flaw, or you would wear shoes with an elevation. Any shoe with elevation creates challenges with the feet. Once again, going back to the ballerina, shoes cast the foot. Friends, if you can't wiggle your toes in your shoes, you can't spread them. If you can't spread them, that means you have no balance. And if you can't wiggle your toes, that means there's no muscle usage, right? What have we learned? Where muscles don't work and they don't get used, there is no blood flow, inadequate blood flow, electricity, and lymph. Okay, so wearing shoes, it's a big issue. That's why you'll hear really good podiatrists say, do not put shoes on your baby. I know they're adorable, like those little Nikes, they're so cute, but the longer you can keep shoes off your children, the better. Because the minute you're wearing a shoe, we cast everything and we stop using all that muscle. That's why there are so many foot problems too. Okay, how about clothing? Think about tight exercise attire. Think about tight jeans. A lot of the guys, my nephews, wear tight jeans now, those ones that kind of hang low, and they're all walking like this. They've removed their lumbar curves. Gone, gone. When we remove any curve of the spine, we're going to have big problems with our joints, with our spines, with pain and injury. Another thing that gets in the way is Spanx. So if we're not wearing clothes that restrict us, perhaps we use products, ladies, like Spanx, because we're so self-conscious. We want to hold things in. We want to hold things in. But sucking in, whether we do it in our own strength deliberately, kind of holding it all in, sucking in, or wearing a product like Spanx or using tight clothing that sucks in for us, creates tremendous respiratory issues and digestive problems. Because why? We're getting this all together. Think what's not going on there. When we restrict or use something to passively restrict us, like clothing, we're creating a standstill here. There's a standstill in this area where there is supposed to be seamless movement. Digestion should be seamless with nothing blocking it. Breathing should be seamless with nothing restricting it. And when we block that, then we end up with difficulty breathing. The intercostals, that is those muscles between the ribs, do not expand as well, right? We also have digestive issues like gas, bloating, indigestion, and constipation. All of that is from the holding in, the sucking in, because we're so self-conscious of the belly. So let it out. Better to let it out. All right. So that is on the whole topic of how we learn to move, who taught us to move, and is it helpful or harmful? Are you utterly depressed yet? Help's on the way. Fear not. Now it's time to talk about how to start moving better. How to start moving better. And I've seen some things come in the chat. Arthritis wears joints down. Friends, I'm not disrespecting arthritis. I'm not disrespecting it at all. And you're right. Arthritis will eventually cause degeneration. But what happened before the arthritis set in? We're seeing arthritis younger and younger. It's not an age thing. You don't turn 50 and that equals arthritis. the way we've moved or not moved has created some of these patterns. And it's not a blame game. I want to just open your eyes and make you see that you have a say. I've got aches and pains too. I have issues. But we also have a say in how we age. Okay, so how to start moving better. In order to get our bodies flying right, we must learn what patterns are offensive in the first place and assess whether our bodies are participating in that harm. Then we must look at where our bodies should be and identify and practice movements that can help get us back on track. You now have some of that information, don't you? Excessive sitting means sitting more than 30 to 60 minutes at a time. We want to start addressing that to start moving better and healing. We know that poor body mechanics, when we do sit, create massive chaos in the body. So when we are sitting, I'll give you a few tips. When it comes to sitting on a chair, this is an ottoman, and you'll notice that it's a little bit low, isn't it? I want to make sure you can see my alignment. My hips are lower than my knees. So my back's going to start to round, all parts of my back. When you're sitting, if you can absolutely help it, especially if you have a chair that's setting you a little bit lower with your hips lower than your knees, you can do a few things. Sit at the edge of the chair as opposed to sitting all the way back where it's going to slouch you and make you collapse. The other thing you can do that's very helpful is sit on a prop that gets your hips now a little higher than your knees. Can you see the change in my posture right away? I've restored my lumbar curve. Okay, so sitting at the edge of the chair if you can, and having your hips a little bit higher than your knees is very helpful. We also want to minimize the slouching. Where there's slouching, there's a poking chin. Or where there's a poking chin to look at the screen, there will be slouching. This tailbone area, we all tend to sit on the tailbone or pelvic tuck. I often tell my students, put your dog tail, show your dog tail, let it out and wag it. Wag your dog tail for the world. So imagine there's a little tail there. Stop sitting on the tail. Allow your tail to be out. And then that gets you aligned with ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips. And then the feet are out in front of me, straight ahead with the ankles under the knees. In other words, there's a 90-degree bend at the knees and they're hovering right over my ankles. Much of it's common sense. We just need to be aware of where we are in space and what we're doing. The other thing that we want to address to start moving better is how we are standing and walking. What do our body mechanics look like there? Very similar to sitting. When you're standing, pretend I'm standing. Ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips. And that dog tail. Come from here and push your dog tail out a little bit. Knees are straight, not chronically bent, and not locked. Just straight, just a natural straight position. Ideally, your feet are straight ahead. If you're somebody who's been kind of walking like this for a long, long time, just slowly start edging forward. Just a little bit, not a rapid change. We don't want to do that. When standing, also think about not favoring one hip. That's a lateral pelvic tilt, and that's going to wreak havoc on the hips and the spine. And for that matter, when sitting too, try not to sit on one butt cheek. You know how we all kind of do that? We shift to one side. When you're sitting, you want to feel that 50-50 equal distribution of weight through the buttocks. I see some of you changing how you're sitting. You're very good. All right. And then we also learn things that hurt us: sucking in the belly, restrictive clothing, all that, tight clothing. We don't want to wreak havoc on our respiratory ability and on our digestion. And it really, really does. So how do we do this in a simplified fashion? How do you leave tonight with something to work with? And I call this moving better simplified. I'm going to teach you the switch method and no cross legs. Yeah. I'm going to teach you the switch method. SWITCH. This is an acronym. We will learn over the next, through the next 3 months together. And it's an acronym to make the switch to better whole body health by taking each letter and giving it meaning. Tonight, we're going to cover the S and the W. And you already know it. The S is for stand more, sit less, and stand and sit better. So the S in our acronym of SWITCH is stand more, sit less, and stand and sit better with good mechanics that we just discussed. Ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips, dog tail out. By far, our seated habits are the #1 source of pain, disease, and premature aging. We sit too long and we sit improperly, and it does a lot of harm. The W stands for walk for 3 minutes every half hour. And if you can't commit to getting up every half hour, then walk for 6 minutes every hour. So the W is walk for 3 minutes every half hour or for 6 minutes every hour. But remember, we don't want to exceed 60 minutes of sitting if we can help it. And when you're walking, you have your walking break, no tech, phones down, look at the world. Get those eyes out there. We'll be talking about that in another session. Get your face out of the tech. This will disrupt the damaging seated cycle and keep blood flowing. In fact, did you know that 3 10-minute walks are far more effective at managing hypertension and diabetes than 1 30-minute walk, right? And it's because you keep getting up every 10 minutes to do something, to use those muscles, which sends electricity, circulation, and lymph to the area. Whereas when we do 1 30-minute walk, right, what do? Check it off, I'm done for the day. And then we sit too long. Okay, so for the S and W, that's where we're at. So friends, I want to close by saying that our bodies are designed to be symmetrical, that is balanced, freely mobile, and pain-free through all planes of motion, twisting, bending, lifting. Pain is not inevitable, and it has nothing to do with our age or ancestry. We have a say in the less than state of our bodies. But to derive change, we must change, right? Change requires change. We have to be willing to participate in our wellness. Now, will every pain, ail, and disease be resolved? Absolutely not. Will knees that have bone-on-bone damage be cured? Nope. Will more movement make us live forever? Not a chance, thank God. But more nutritious movement, better movement, will make us better than we are right now. And better is better. I say that to my students all the time. Better is better. Exercising harder and faster is not better. Moving more throughout the day with compromised alignment and poor mechanics is not better. Better is better, just doing a little better. So until we meet next time, let's remember our S, stand more, sit less, but stand and sit better. And our W, walk for 3 minutes every half hour or for 6 minutes every hour with no tech, and that will keep your blood flowing smoothly. And finally, give yourselves grace. We've been moving a certain way for decades. Yes, change requires change, but it also requires loving patience and support. And that's what this time is about. Higher fitness and wellness through faith and fellowship. On Pat's Facebook page, I read today, when I is replaced by we, illness becomes wellness. Yeah, I'm cheering you on every step of the way.
That's just fantastic, Jen. Thank you. So you've educated us and you've given us positive ways to move. So I'm sure there are some questions out there that either you're free to ask or put in the chat for us to ask. So
This is very important. My daughter has had uncontrollable high blood pressure. She's in and out of hospitals for the last couple of months. She's been on the same medication for, I'm trying to remember, I think 10 years. And all of a sudden, the medication's not working anymore. What do you recommend to get her pressure down?
Okay.
So I'm not a doctor, but what I would recommend, I don't know her overall state, if there's pain when she moves.
No, there's not. She has no pain when she moves, but this has been going on. She's been fine for many years, and all of a sudden, her blood pressure is just out of control. I mean, we've tried everything. The medication that she's on just isn't working. There's got to be a way that we can get the pressure down naturally. You know what I mean?
3 10-minute walks.
Yeah.
3 10-minute walks. I had a client I worked with who had, he actually had an aortic dissection. It's a miracle he survived it. But after that, he was on blood pressure meds that were just not doing the job.
Not doing anything at all for her. She's like 200 over 1 something.
Wow.
And they had her in the hospital. They put her on an IV drip. She was, they thought she was under control. They decided, well, we got to send her home because it's COVID out there. They didn't want to take a chance to expose her to COVID. Meanwhile, she can't get it down. He increased the dosages and it's still staying up at 200.
Yeah, it's classic because again, no medication regrettably can do it all. No diet can fix everything, as we talked about. Hypertension.
She's not eating anything with salt in it. She barely is eating anything with salt in it. I mean, I make
okay, we're gonna have to take give some other folks a chance for some questions.
3 10-minute
walks. That's what we recommend.
And begin with that and continue with your physician.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of it sounds like a lot of things going on. But yeah,
I have a question about sitting.
Yes.
Okay. Sitting in like a soft armchair, like to watch television, what would you suggest?
I will tell you that every chair that exists to man, our car seats, our nice cozy chairs, they will misalign us. So it's just impossible. So to get a lot of feedback. So to get you where you need to be.
Therapeutic office chairs.
Somebody needs to mute.
Oh, sorry.
So there are therapeutic office chairs, but they don't do the job either. Anytime you sit in a chair and if you feel your back flat where you can't stick your fingers in there, there's no natural space. We've lost that alignment. So what you can do is sit again on a prop, a pillow. You can also put a lumbar support pillow or a roll towel behind you. You'll know you're in the right position when you can get a couple of fingers back there. There's some space between you and the back of the chair.
So a lumbar cushion, where do you put it on your back? All the way down or in the middle of the back?
The middle.
The middle of the back.
In the middle.
Okay.
The low back. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have just a couple more minutes. Any other, I know I see people have been taking notes and there was a lot of information, wondering how we, if there's ways of sharing some notes, maybe towards the end of the program, we can put something together that people might have access to, Jen. That's something to think about, after the series or something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if you have any questions or just you want private interaction, Pat or Liz, my email, right? I can give you my email and you're more than welcome to contact me that way. And that is J as in Jennifer, A as in Anne, Wilshaw, Wilshaw 1410 at Gmail. JA Wilshaw 1410. Yeah, there it is. JA Wilshaw 1410 at Gmail. Is there any? Oh, go ahead.
All right. Did I understand that the recording would be available on YouTube? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, it will be. It doesn't come up automatically, but that's a really great way to access and review this information, because I think Jen has given us such a great foundation for learning how this body works, and also giving us the opportunity to work with our bodies, not against it, and to be gentle with it and careful. And so using the being able to tap into the YouTube channel on our website will be really helpful. So just watch that. It will come up. It just sometimes takes a little bit of time, but it will be under the Wellness Wednesday when you go on the West Side website.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thanks. Liz put it in the chat. Well, how to access the website. Okay. Anything else? We have time for maybe one more question. I can't see screen, so you can unmute yourself if you have something. Okay.
Any questions about the sort of the physics of it all? Why these bodies need what they need? I think I stressed the importance of electricity, blood flow, and lymph.
And from what I can tell, I think everybody is kind of taking all of this in and letting it synthesize and try to figure out, okay, so where do I fit with all of this? I love your generous caring of the person, to be kind to yourself and to not beat yourself up for things that perhaps you have not even known were part of the problem. And so how great to have this information to go forward. So Jen, I look forward very much to having you come again in February to continue on this journey. In the meantime, we all have homework that we can do, which is pretty wonderful. I think there's nothing more frustrating than finding out we're doing something wrong without a way to correct it. And you've given us some really practical, wonderful ways to start working. Just, getting up and that, those more frequent walks. What a wonderful, wonderful way. So thank you, Jen, for being with us. We look forward to you coming back in February. And I just wanted to share that next week is a live program at Westside in the Sanctuary, and will be live streamed. And we will be doing an opening heart guided meditation, and we will have a harpist there that will help us through music and through meditation with Liz and myself, to encourage healing and celebration of our hearts as we come into Valentine's Day.
And that's also going to be a live stream. So if you can't be with us in person for any reason, and I know some of you are in California and South Jersey, and we will be live streaming. So just look out for your emails. And if you want to be added to our list, I generally try to add people, but please feel free to reach out to me. You have my email that Els, at Westside, so that you can stay in touch with us and get the information about our upcoming programs, including Miss Jen for the next 2 months.
Okay.
Jen, it was a wonderful program. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And I thank you all for participating. An assignment like this means everything to me. So thank you.